Yay. All right, cool.
See, I'm becoming very technical, Richard. All
You're
right,
quite a big deal.
all right, Mayor, we're going to count down from 5. We start at 0. And 5, 4, 3. Wait, let me make sure I look pretty enough. The light's weird today. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2. Hi, everybody. I'm Bob Marrone. This is Radio Westchester with our first interview in quite some time with the former mayor of Mount Vernon and now running for city controller, Richard Thomas. Again, my name is Bob Marrone. Now, this broadcast will be posted on a number of different outlets. Of course, Radio Westchester. You can go to radiowestchester.com to listen to it, or you can go to MyTuner Radio for our app there. It will also be up on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and other outlets. First, good day, good morning to you, Mayor Thomas. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Good morning, good afternoon. Thanks for having me on. Great to see you. Glad to see that you're healthy and you know, the coronavirus hopefully doesn't visit you or anybody that you love. It hit quite a few for me, I can tell you now. And I just, you know, hope and pray that everybody's doing their best to stay healthy and get vaccinated.
Well, so far my family is good, although some people have had it and gotten over it. I did lose a close friend,
Yep.
whom I knew for 50 years, early in the virus last April. Mayor, he died cradle to grave from diagnosis to the end in like 2 weeks.
Wow.
He was one of those people who had an incredible immune response. He wasn't a young man, he was 69, but he was in Olympic shape, a really busy athlete. So who knows, really?
I have on my screen, I don't know if you can see it to my right, probably your left, my buddy at Johnny's Pizza, Joe Piscopo. He passed away from it, and you know, complications related to it. And it's just, you know, totally devastating. That family has been hit hard with so many different tragedies over the years, from the father to the mother to him. And it's just, my heart goes out to the Piscopo family, and they are a true Mount Vernon fixture. And I just hope and pray that everybody doesn't have the same, you know, outcome where they lose that fight to COVID. And I wish that Joe had a chance to get vaccinated, because he would probably still be here with us today. But, you know, I love him dearly and I miss him. And my heart goes out to the family still.
Well, God bless him. That's all I can say. It's been a tragedy. Over 500,000 people now, their lives lost. To this disease. But let's get into you, Mayor. I still call you Mayor. That's honorific, earned it. But now you are, and this may be one of your earlier interviews, you have announced your candidacy for controller of the city of Mount Vernon.
Yes.
In terms of my interests in local politics, this is rich. This, for so many reasons, is rich, and not Richard Thomas. We start out with why, and then we'll get into how we got here.
Sure.
Why do you want to do this?
I'm looking at everything. COVID has shut down economies, job losses, and I look out and I see the city of Mount Vernon committed to a blockbuster business model that went bankrupt. And I'm saying we have to evolve, we have to change, and we have to do things differently and better for a COVID world. We need a Netflix subscription type model of business for City Hall to subscribe to help the homeowners make it through this pandemic. And what I believe is there are things that the controller can do that can help reduce taxes from a nominal amount. Meaning if you're paying $20,000, there should be a way to get your taxes down to about $12,000. And there are other things that the controller can do to help make the city ready for a pandemic like COVID, but also be prepared to deal with basic problems from weather, like snow or excessive rain that causes flooding. There are things that we need to prepare for and support the operations of the city. And we've seen nothing but aggravation, chaos, confusion, finger pointing. And for a long time, they tried to blame me. And thankfully, people are starting to realize that that's not true. So I want to fix the problem in the controller's office so that people can just live their life and enjoy their homes, and Mount Vernon can create a whole new set of opportunities for families to thrive in a COVID future.
Okay, we have so much to talk about here. Why not mayor, number one? Because the mayor sets policy, tone. You were in the job before. We'll get to how you left it and what your legal status is. But more importantly, a controller should be answerable to a greater degree, I think, than what we've seen in the last decade, to the mayor in terms of supporting the policy while opening an open book for him or her to manage the city's finances. Why not mayor?
So first, I'm looking at this as a right now situation. We have a variety of problems that have gone unaddressed and continue to get worse. Our biggest problem right now is the controller. That office was flagged by New York State Comptroller DiNapoli as the biggest problem Mount Vernon faces right now.
If I
And we
may,
have to
I'm
solve
sorry to
it.
interrupt you.
Sure.
Who finally lit a match in his cave?
It's unclear, but I'm going to be grateful that the controller of the state of New York finally did an audit on the city of Mount Vernon and validated all the points that I made over the past few years.
Yes, then why is she still sitting there then?
So I can't explain why parties have not acted. What I can, question, what we must question is, how come the current mayor and the current city council has not taken the steps to address the problem with the controller? For example, we've seen the mayor and the city council get into shouting matches, arguments, explicatives, right? Going back and forth between them at meetings. And the point I want to make is all they have to do is, as the Board of Estimate and Contract, the city council president and the mayor, they both agree that the control is a problem. State comptroller agrees that the control is a problem. The unions agree that the control is a problem. And even the Department of Justice recently indicated that the controller of Mount Vernon is a problem. All these people agree. And there's one simple thing that the mayor and the city council president can do immediately, which is change banks, open the books by a simple vote at the Board of Estimate and Contract. But they have not done that yet.
Mayor, if I may, could you have done that when you were in office? Did you try and do that?
I tried to do that repeatedly. And the one time where they agreed to the request, they didn't show up to the meeting. So I basically did everything in my power, from obtaining court orders to holding the Board of Estimate meeting and putting it on the agenda. And the city council president at the time and the controller, who's still in office now, ignored the meeting and just basically would not even address the issue. So now we know that everybody sees it. It's a fact.
No,
that
if I may, why should it be any different now, Mayor?
So
why should this city council, which is slightly changed, this city council president be any more amenable to mayor, the present mayor, than they were to you? Certainly the controller has been no more cooperative with her.
Well, that's where it becomes a question to them. Like, they've said it on a number of occasions. We're going to support each other, council president to the mayor, vice versa. But this issue of changing the bank, forcing the books to be open,
yes,
the Board of Estimate and Contract has the power to determine where the funds are deposited and how they are deposited, but they won't exercise that power. And that's where I have to ask, why is City Hall right now not exercising the power for people? How come they're not bringing the transparency and accountability that we need? I mean, we're in the middle of a pandemic and they're making this choice to not act. So this is part of the reason why I'm saying, look, if they're going to continue to take a position of not acting, not solving the controller problem now, you don't need an election to do that. I'm going to step up and do it because I love Mount Vernon. And I'm so sick and tired of seeing the race to the bottom. I want to reach the top.
Mayor, I can't help but think of Charlie Brown. And I'm not equating you to Charlie Brown, but the dynamic here of Charlie Brown. Lucy holds the football and
Yep.
Charlie Brown goes to kick it and it's gone. In fact, I don't run your campaign, but I'd be dishonest if I didn't say, it almost seems as if the only way to do this is to have her removed from office by an election.
Right.
Because I remember when I interviewed Sean Patterson Howard several times before this station took a hiatus due to COVID. And she would stress that she thought she had a good relationship with the controller, which was to say also perhaps better than your own had been.
Mm-hmm.
And my retort to her, and with all the best of intentions for her, was that it shouldn't be about a relationship. The woman has a sworn duty to do what's best for the city of Mount Vernon.
Right.
What I'm saying is, it seems to me that the only way to replace her is truly to replace her via election. Would you agree with that?
At this point in time, yes, I do agree, because this is why I'm running. I'm running because we have to solve the problem, but we also have bigger problems to solve. It's not just the sewer compliance that needs to be engineered. It's also, how do we re-engineer the taxes? How do we fix the tax bill so that people don't get crushed in a post-COVID world? The restaurants are struggling. The realtors are struggling. The landlords are struggling. How can this city continue to operate on an outdated, obsolete approach and then raise taxes as if nothing changed? We need a controller that knows how to look at these problems and solve them and present more solutions to survive a COVID future.
Mayor Thomas, I appreciate very much that you have engaged these policy issues and you've studied them. But the real issue would be, it seems to me, if you are elected, and we're going to get to more basics of your candidacy in a moment, but if you are elected, you will have to partner with the current mayor. Are you prepared to do that?
Absolutely. And I've demonstrated that I will partner with anyone and everyone that wants to advance Mount Vernon. And I invite people to look at a July 2017 press conference with myself and Maureen Walker. And, you know, it was kumbaya. I really thought that we were going to have a good working cooperative relationship, because that, you know, gathering happened as a result of the Department of Justice saying, hey, you guys need to work together to fix these sewers. And that was their response. They said, you know what? Let's start indicating to the DOJ we're going to work together. And I did everything I could to satisfy the needs of the council and the controller, but they still played politics. They still, you know, chose political points over policy, and they ignored the people. And as you can see, the problems got worse since. And thankfully, New York State Controller DiNapoli flagged in his audit that going back to 2016, the controller blocked access to everything the mayor needed. So I didn't say it. I mean, I was saying it to you and to many others, and people were like, oh, you know, this guy is screaming, the sky's falling. But thankfully, the state controller validated my points.
Mayor,
so the point is, I'm sorry, I will work with the mayor, the council, anyone and everyone to advance Mount Vernon. I've demonstrated that in the past, and I will do it again in the future.
Okay, I want to underscore one more thing, and then we're going to get into what your legal status is. And once again, I remind people, you're listening to an exclusive broadcast here at Radio Westchester with the former mayor of Mount Vernon, now running, has announced his candidacy for the controller, and for so many reasons is that newsworthy, Richard Thomas. And I remember, you know, I earned my living doing the news. You were a public official and part of the news for almost a decade now.
Yeah.
And I remember when you ran for city council, you were concerned about, again, this is the football I talk about, not that you're the one kicking it. You were concerned about transparency and finances, and you ran on that, and you pushed it, and they pushed back. You became mayor, and you talked about the same thing. You emphasized the same thing. You talked about the obstruction coming out of that office. And as we look back, the things that you had said have now been vindicated. And even the current mayor would not be able to deny that, because she was warned. She was warned on my airwaves. She was warned by you. And she has run into the same thing. what accounts for, and I'm not talking about what you did or what she's trying to do, or even what Mayor Davis did before you. What accounts for this woman's intransigence and the failure of the governor, and for many, many, many years, the comptroller himself, and the legislature in Mount Vernon to do something about this? This is egregious.
You know, I still have not found an answer as to why the governor has not acted on Mount Vernon's petition that was put before him in 2018 to help deal with this issue. Hundreds of vendors are owed thousands of dollars. They are injured beyond belief because they have carrying costs to pay. They have higher costs of capital as a result. And we've seen these vendors that the city owes hundreds of thousands of dollars to pull back and not provide the vital equipment we need to deal with emergencies in Mount Vernon. That puts lives at risk. Why the state comptroller chose to ignore it, I don't know. And even why the attorney general chose to ignore what's going on in the comptroller's office, as well as, allegations of corruption in the police department. Think about it. So many things happened in Mount Vernon and they ignored it. I don't understand why, but what I do know is I'm not ignoring it. I have confronted it before. I will confront it again. And I believe that the changes that I've made, especially to the charter of the city, have put in a new structure that will require these issues to be resolved, because it makes zero sense to pay over $20,000 in taxes or 30-something thousand dollars in rent if you're renting, to have potholes that are the size of caves in the street, that have, no garbage collection and rats running around and crime shooting up when we pay more in taxes than people in Bronxville, and we're a community of color. So Mount Vernon pays the highest taxes in the county of Westchester. We pay the highest taxes in the country. And for some reason, nobody seems to care that we're getting ripped off by some in City Hall. I care, and I'm going to do something about it. And that's why I'm running for controller, to fix the problem, to fix Mount Vernon.
Will you, if elected, would you be able to work with Sean Patterson Howard?
Absolutely. I mean, this is
because I want to move on to one other thing. You already answered that, and I realized my question was redundant, but I wanted to get that out there because naturally, you're going to have a mayor, and in her, at least if you're elected this year, you will have a mayor who ran against you, who will then have to work with you, and I wanted to get that out of the way. And also, what I think we've gotten out of the way: why does Richard Thomas want to run? And you've articulated policy positions already. But a lot of people, when they see this today or listen to it, and again, we've given you permission, just full disclosure, to film this yourself. It'll go out on our places and anywhere else you choose to do so. But what people are going to say, okay, let's get to the issue. You mean Richard Thomas is running? What is his legal status? When you left office, obviously. You had no choice in the matter by then. What is your legal status now?
I'm just a regular guy. I complied with the arrangement with the state of New York to step back from office for a year, paid a fine, and learned a tremendous amount from the experience. I mean, when you run for office, it's like the equivalent of starting a whole new business. There are so many different rules and regulations, and you don't know everything. But what I do know is that mistakes were made on the campaign. I made mistakes. I regret some of those mistakes, and those mistakes will never be repeated again. And you saw that over the past few campaigns that I've run. It's like you learn from these things. And my only hope is that people look at this and see, like, wait a minute, what really happened? Take a look at what happened and judge for yourself. But just know that, I took accountability because mistakes were made, and that's it.
I'm going to ask you a little bit more about that, but before I do, and in fairness to you, I think we owe it to you to let you explain your legal status. The fact that it was a part of your agreement, was it not, that you would be able to run for office after September of that very year
Right.
that you took the plea that you were offered.
Right.
That needs to be clear, that you are not, as you sit here today, a felon in any way. You are not
No.
restricted in any way. That's correct. Tell us what you, because I think we need to get it out of the way.
Sure.
I can tell you straight away, as an analyst, you made a mistake. You made a mistake in judgment. It wasn't an uncommon mistake, the kind of finance mistakes you made, but you did. What really have you learned from that? Number one. Number two, how will that affect you going forward in terms of how you run your campaign, how you run future campaigns, and so forth?
So, I think that the key lesson learned is that in politics, there seems to be an unforgiving, in Mount Vernon at least, it has become a blood sport. And what I've learned is that there's a big problem with having to discuss problems that need to be solved. And why politics has become so, confrontational, controversial, is something that really doesn't have an answer at this point in time. The only thing I can point to is that money, power, and respect, and who is in charge of the money and the power and the respect that they want from the two in Mount Vernon remains a mystery to a certain extent. I have an idea of who some of those people are who have benefited from Mount Vernon being this way, and those are some very powerful people. But
okay, but I want to go there.
Right, but with respect to me, what I can tell you is, when you create a campaign, you have to ask friends, family, all sorts of people to get involved to help you build up. And when I created my campaign in 2015, a lot of people were warned away to not work on my campaign. So I was left with a very small pool of people that would help, that truly believed in me and believed in Mount Vernon. And one of those people happened to be a family friend from the 1950s, my grandmother's friend, a banker and a bookkeeper. And God bless her soul, she was my treasurer. And as the campaign evolved, her health deteriorated, and we brought in a volunteer bookkeeper to assist in the matter that had no experience with election law bookkeeping. And that's where I learned very early on, like, you have to make sure that you have, the right people assisting you, especially in your campaign, because any mistake you make, the politicians are going to try and exploit those mistakes and use them against you. And they did that to me. And that's why I said, look, a mistake was made. I took accountability for the mistakes that were made. But for most people out there listening, and this is where I think it's my hope is that over time people see that there is a process. And right now with the governor, he's going through a process right now that is with the attorney general and some other entities because of sexual harassment claims made against Governor Cuomo. And if you listen very carefully to how the governor's going through his process right now, the attorney general made it clear they cannot act without a referral. They have to get a referral from the governor to investigate the governor. The same goes for election law. It's like, if there are election law violations, the State Board of Elections reviews those violations, and then at the end of their review, they determine whether or not to refer it to the attorney general for prosecution or not. And what happened to me, there was never a referral. So, and that's where a lot of people say, how come, Richard has a hard time admitting mistakes? I don't have a hard time admitting mistakes. I admit that there were mistakes made. What I point to is the process. And that's where
I understand that. I do understand that. There were a lot of people, and I've spoken to people fairly high up in the state government who have told me, as a news person, that people in your position who were accused of what you were accused of usually was treated in a different way. And that's true. However, I think what people are looking for you to say, assuming you feel this way, is that you made errors in judgment, that whether it was letting go what you let go, whether it was the way the money was spent. We saw the reports at the time of expensive pocketbooks purchased, things like that, because I think that I think people are ready to hear someone finally admit a mistake than just go on and explaining what happened.
Right. And that's why I said, like, I have acknowledged that mistakes were made. I said I regret mistakes were made. I'm saying it now that, I've learned from those mistakes. They're not going to happen again. And if people want to talk about it further, let's talk about it. But
No,
the
but I
more
want to
important
give you a
issue is to
chance
talk
to
about the
expunge it.
future that we face. And
I
that's
want to give you a chance to expunge it, Richard.
yeah, no, and I received that.
Okay.
And I just hope that people, really step back and look at the totality of things and see, like, look, we did our best. Errors were made. We learned from those mistakes. We believe that they were clerical, and we learned from them.
Well,
But
okay,
at the
what
end of the
was your
day, we took
mistake then?
I took accountability, and we moved
Mayor,
on.
you've taken accountability, but as you look back, what was your mistake? What do you think? What do you feel that, Jesus, I shouldn't have done that, or my judgment was bad? Where was it?
It's when I look back at it, I think I should have put more time in working with the State Board of Elections to make sure that, the open questions that are still, in fact, on their books open today. And I should have put more time there. But at the time that the State Board was talking to me, I had a gang war erupt in Mount Vernon. So I dedicated a lot of time to the violence in the city and made every effort to deal with public safety. And I was expecting, at least, for the State Board to help resolve it. But as you can see, we had a person by the name of Eric Schneiderman, who himself had issues with
Mhm.
alcohol, racism, and abusing women, come after me and start this whole thing. So I'm looking at this and saying, look, I acknowledge mistakes were made. I wish I had time to deal with it, but it's hard for me to go back and say this one thing is it. But that's the only thing I can point to is I didn't have the ability, and I didn't have the ability to really even deal with the issue the way I wanted to because of all the circumstances. And I'm not making excuses. I'm just telling you what happened, because at the time a decision was made to focus on public safety of the city. I didn't have a police commissioner. I did not have a chief of staff. I did not have a press secretary. I had no staff. 100 positions were eliminated from my government before I even set
Mhm.
foot in the door. So it was just me and a few people in my office to do the work of the city. And we got it done, but it came at a huge sacrifice to me because I didn't realize that this was a big vulnerability that was going to be exploited to try and to push me out of office. But I went through the process. That I still contend there were issues with that process. But nonetheless, I believe that, I learned from those mistakes, regret not being able to take more action to nip it in the bud. But that's it. That's the lesson. You learn not to repeat the mistakes. You deal with issues before they arise and before the problem gets worse.
Do you anticipate that when you get out on the stump, and we're going to get into some of the issues you'll be facing regarding the churches in Mount Vernon, working with the governor, and again, going back to something you've been saying for 10 years, running an open economic shop. But this is probably going to be an issue in the beginning, perhaps more so than even the policy, which you know so well and which you've articulated for several years. When you go out on the stump, people are going to say to you, why should we vote for you again after what happened? What will be your response to them?
I would ask them to look at the proof and not the promises. I would ask them to look at the results and not the rhetoric that they've been hearing. And when you look at the changes that I've been able to make, 3 centuries worth of change in a short period of time, bridges that were built in 1893 being replaced without using the public's dime, without using Mount Vernon residents' money. That's a big accomplishment because, again, we're paying high taxes and we're not getting anything in return, or at least as much as in return. I will ask people to look at the fact that Memorial Field was stuck for a decade and it took a fight, and I got it unstuck.
But I have to tell you why I'm smiling. I just took you through your paces because I think it's just my own opinion that that it's okay to make mistakes in this day and age. I know that the normal political rhetoric is that you should never admit a mistake.
Yeah.
I think particularly in a city that has the kind of heart that yours does, I think it will resonate well if you continue to do that.
But look,
something I never know. I need to. I'm giving you a compliment. I just take a long time getting to it. I used to say this during Obamacare when I thought that when it happened, it wasn't perfect. But Obamacare, had it even existed in 1/5 of what it was, it happened, and it put healthcare on the map, even had he failed. It was going to have to be dealt with.
Yep.
Well, I always felt that you pushed so hard, and you did, and I never thought you got enough credit for it. And folks, I'm not trying to gild the lily. I want to be sure Richard does apologize and does accept his responsibility. But, and I've said this on the air many times, you put Memorial Field on the front page. You died on the parapet.
Yeah.
You died up on the hill.
Yeah.
I think the county did the right thing. I think Sean Patterson Howard, and the brief moment that Andre Wallace was there, they were able to continue that. But that really was yours. And I'm glad to be able to say that to you.
Thank you. And I just, and for the people out there that are still wondering, like, what's up and why, I'm not asking them to trust me. I'm asking them to trust the structure. Look at the structure I put in place from the charter revisions in specific.
Well, now it's going to be, how do you get elected as a controller? Different job, different objectives.
And this is where and why my executive MBA in finance from the Stern School of Business and my executive training at Harvard Kennedy School Ash Center for Government Innovation comes into play. And I want to use the other skills that I have to help close the wealth gap and also create more wealth in Mount Vernon for Mount Vernon. We have so much potential trapped because of poor politics. And I think with the proper policy, we can unlock that potential and create real value for homeowners. I believe when we do the math, we should be able to get taxes down by real numbers from $20,000 to $12,000. That's an $8,000 refund check that should be going to homeowners. And if you're renting, I would work with the landlords to try and find a way to give renters relief.
Is that the job of the controller?
The job of the controller.
You almost sound like you're running for mayor again.
No, the job of the controller is really to help the operations of the city and help move the money supply through these operations. Mm-hmm. And when you have priorities of fixing the sewers, the controller has to help figure out, how do you pay for it? That's where the controller's role is like, how do you do this? And my question as a controller would be, how are we operating? Are we going to continue the operation of a Blockbuster video store as the model of Mount Vernon's government? Or do we have to evolve to a Netflix version of business because COVID says, you know what? The economy may shut down for certain periods of time. Office spaces may not be rented for a while because COVID is a concern. And as we work as a country to emerge from COVID, the local governments have to come up with ways to, finance themselves. And this is where I'm saying we have to look at the math, do our numbers, and come up with a way to pay for the day-to-day operations, but also the long-term needs of the city.
Let's take a look at a couple of things that you'll be facing and challenges. And let's talk a little bit about backers. Now, obviously, that was a problem for you because you had a well-known backer who a lot of people didn't like or respect, and it created some problems for you. Now you're running again.
Yep.
You have new backers. I can assume that it'll be a different set of people. Not that everyone that backed you was a problem. You had the one problem, but who's backing you now? Who's with you in terms of finance? How are you going about financing your campaign? And do you anticipate any problems with that?
I don't anticipate problems with campaign finance. I don't anticipate problems with campaign backers. I believe the people of Mount Vernon continue to back me. They're the reason why I'm stepping up. My phone has not stopped ringing over the past year and a half about how far back Mount Vernon has fallen, from crime going up to grime on the street to rats the size of cats attacking people trying to get to their cars, the potholes that are swallowing, cars and strollers. It's absurd what is going on. And people notice. People notice that City Hall added more positions. They noticed that City Hall increased pay for people. And they question, like, wait a minute, how come when you were in office and we actually had an economy and we had money to work with, they wouldn't even let you buy paper clips or toilet paper, but now they're adding positions for political pals. So I'm just saying to you that the people are backing me. And if for people out there wondering, Joe Spezio is not involved with my campaign. And I haven't really spoken to Joe except for, like, on Facebook, he'll make a comment and I'm respectful. I'll comment back. But it's not like we're going out to beers. We're not hanging out. I haven't seen him in over a year or more.
Understood.
So what I want to emphasize to people is this is what power does. People in powerful positions look for ways to bring down another person that threatens their power. And in a black community, there's a stigma of, a white guy controlling a black guy. There's always been this historical stigma. So they created a false narrative saying, oh, Richard Thomas is controlled by Joe Spezio. And no matter how many times I would tell people or demonstrate that Joe does not think for me, he doesn't speak for me, people just kept on going with that lie because it's easy to believe. So I just want to emphasize that, the people are backing me, and I look forward to, getting continued support from the people of the city.
Okay, let's move on to something that I know has to, an issue you have to deal with. We've talked about it before on the air many, many times. Your city has an uncommon amount of power invested in its churches and its pastors. In fact, one pastor is even working for your city government now, which, as someone who likes separation of church and state, I have issues with that, but I don't know the man. I don't know his qualifications. You have to win over the churches, it is said, to win in Mount Vernon. Do you have still a constituency there? I know you once did. How do you intend to deal with that?
I believe that the people are going to make a decision based on the ideas that are coming forward. Are you going to continue the same broken, failed policies, or are you going to pick a person that has the best ideas and proof that the vision and the approach works? And when you look at City Hall, one of the candidates is the chief of staff. Look at the city. Crime is up over 50%. Property values are threatened because public safety is a problem. The health of the community is already jeopardized with raw sewage going into people's homes. The problems that they must fix now, they're not fixing, and they're in charge. And the problems that they're talking about with the comptroller, they're not fixing now. Why do they have to wait for an election? And this is where I think people are going to say, wait a minute, you're running for office, but you're in office now. You can solve the problem now, but you're choosing not to because you want to get in office. So how real is this problem? We know it's a real problem because raw sewage is in people's basements. We know that. But the problem I have is they're there now. They've been there for the past couple of years, and it's only gotten worse. And you can look at my track record and see the results. The bridges are being replaced. Memorial Field is under reconstruction. The charter was changed to make the comptroller's office specifically more transparent. Those are things that I initiated and did because I know we just need to do the work and move on. But for others, it's about politics in the position. For me, it's about the people.
Now, let's look at that. Because I know that there were other issues that were ongoing while you were in office.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not trying to relitigate that anymore, but you've talked a little bit about it recently, the police scandal ongoing.
Yep.
There's a police scandal in your town. And again, I keep going back to this because of all the issues I've covered in my 20 years of radio and now TV news, is the persistence of the comptroller. You know, I've even given her the benefit of the doubt. I used to start shows, Mayor, by saying she's either a hero or a villain.
Mm-hmm.
In any case, there are issues there. How has she persisted? How can we stop this from ever happening again?
So one of the things I look at is the College of New Rochelle.
I was going to ask you about that.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
And I think about, so when I look at the controller of Mount Vernon and I look at the legacy of issues, I think of the College of New Rochelle because the College of New Rochelle had a controller that was there for 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
And when that controller retired, everything fell apart. It was like a house of cards. And the new controller came in and basically said, well, this is a problem. And it led to a full-blown investigation by the SEC, and the DOJ held the former controller of the College of New Rochelle accountable for all sorts of misrepresentations on the books. And the SEC, the regulator, held the auditors of the college accountable. And now the college went bankrupt. But for Mount Vernon's purposes, I hope that the College of New Rochelle's story is not our story. I do not believe Mount Vernon needs to go bankrupt. I do not believe Mount Vernon needs a state control board to take over. I believe Mount Vernon just needs a group of people to do their job and let the work itself out. Put politics to the back and focus on the policy. And there are so many things that will help Mount Vernon solve its financial problems if we just focus on setting clear priorities. There's enough cash flow in Mount Vernon to finance the solution without having to go get a bond rating and without having to do all these things that they make you believe that we have to do. We just need cash flow.
But you still do need a bond rating. In fact, Mayor, this is a perfect opportunity for us to totally look forward now. The job of controller, as you know it and see it, and will, if you will, mold it to the objectives. What are, let's say, the 5 things that you will do that will make the controller position different, that will make it work for the city more effectively, and support the mayor, whomever they may be, in coalescing a strategy for your city? What are your goals as a controller?
So first, I would look at the vendors that are owed money and say, look, I'm sorry that you've been through hell with the city of Mount Vernon, and I'm going to make it right. And I'm going to work a way out to get you paid and create a situation where either your invoice is processed in 21 days or less. And that's a system that I would put in place to make sure that vendors are paid promptly so that we don't have to ever worry about a fire truck going to the scene with broken parts and the ladder can't make it up to the 3rd floor because the hydraulics are stuck.
Okay, but Mayor, we can't pay bills if we don't have the money. Are there not, and I know I'm being presumptuous,
that's okay.
Are there not underlying issues that prevent the city from paying its bills? Perhaps the money's not there, the accounts are screwed up.
So I'm pretty sure that it's like a spaghetti bowl where, one thing leads to another thing on the other side. And I'm pretty sure the cash flow management is all out of whack. But the controller has the power to say, all right, stop. These are the top 5 things we need to deal with. We need to make sure that the police department has enough resources to keep themselves in the public safe. We need to make sure the fire department has what they need. And we also need to make sure that DPW has all the equipment necessary to keep Mount Vernon clean and create smooth streets. And when you think about it, I just want to point out, DPW right now is spending about $15,000 a week at a minimum filling potholes. And then guess what they do? They go back to those potholes that they filled in another week or two and spend the same $15,000, as opposed to using that $15,000 to repave the whole block. So my point is, I would look at the performance and do operational audits and issue those reports on a frequent basis to show people, look, this is what's happening now. The building department has processed these amount of permits, and there are 80% of those permits still open for processing. The building department needs to look at these steps to improve their operations, and I'm giving these recommendations to the mayor to consider, to implement. And that's something that has not happened in Mount Vernon. You haven't had someone really question the intellectual aspect of the operations,
Okay.
because it needs to happen.
I want to back up a little bit, only in the interest of time, not back up, but get to another issue. Again, I'm almost quoting Richard Thomas here, the councilman, and then Richard Thomas, the mayor. Transparency, knowing what's in the accounts, the mayor seeing them. How will you fix that? What will it take? And we don't know this yet, but do you anticipate, as did the new controller at the aforementioned College of New Rochelle,
Yeah.
do you anticipate finding things that are going to be, oh my goodness, moments?
You know, I'm not sure what will be found, and I'm not one to really want to go live in the past. Whatever happened in the past, I really want to kind of put it in a box and leave it there, because the problems that we face going forward are much bigger, and COVID being the biggest one. So what I would like to do is basically say, look, my objective is, let's get the vendors paid. Let's get these small businesses that are struggling and hurting,
Okay.
and then
And
let's get the operations going.
Yeah,
So,
but the mayor says to you, I want to know what's in my accounts.
yeah,
I still will never understand, and maybe you can tell us now, why when you were mayor and now as Sean Patterson, Howard is in office, why you can't know the numbers in the city that you run, since I don't know how she prevented it, the current controller. What will it take to make those numbers plain and simple and out?
So it'll be a flip of a switch with me. I mean, I'll hit the button and say, here it is, and
Needs
I'll
to
put
be
it on
said.
the city's website. I'll let everybody see, because from where I stand, there's nothing to hide. And I believe that when people see that I will add greater transparency than what the law provides for, people will see that, look, I put in a structure that's going to help improve performance. It's going to build trust back in City Hall. And we're going to see Mount Vernon resolve its issues in a very dynamic and innovative way. And that's what we need to defeat COVID from killing our economy.
Now, one of the things you haven't mentioned as we look forward, and this is when you were leaving the scene at the time, there were issues about whether or not collected taxes were getting to the school system on time and in the proper amounts. Does that problem still exist? Do you know?
So the problem is exacerbated. The school district sued the city of Mount Vernon for $20 million that's missing from the education fund. And the school district says that the city controller did not give them their $20 million to educate children. I would never, ever put our children in that harm's way. I would never, ever take from our kids. And my children go to the Mount Vernon City School District. So I see, hear, and feel the pain that the teachers go through because this controller did not give them their $20 million. Why? It's unclear. But I will say that District Attorney Mimi Roca is looking at the controller. She's looking at that issue. And I hope that the district attorney, brings closure to some of these issues that are fully within her jurisdiction and wheelhouse. But for me, I know that at some point in time, the city of Mount Vernon is going to have to own up to that and probably give the school district $20 million. That will be a double, triple tax on the people of Mount Vernon.
Well,
Where
where are
does
they going
that
to get
come
that
from?
money from? Yeah,
That's the question. And that's why I'm saying we really have to look ahead and say, what are our threats? The tax base is under attack because of COVID. What are we doing to reposition our operations to make sure that we can afford to pay? And how can we get our vendors on board to stay with us? And that's where I know that my background in finance, my background in government innovation, the results that I've been able to get accomplished despite all the noise and all the big fights. People know that, yeah, I got knocked down, but I'm going to get back up to do my best for the people. And so I can only tell you that I will do my best to put the information in front of everyone, help the council make a decision of what they want to vote on, and hope the mayor, hears the feedback that we're given. And I hope that the mayor, asks questions, because it's a two-way street. We got to work together. And I think we can get this done and do some great things for the city if everybody can just focus on one problem at a time.
Do you think that the mayor, if you're elected, will be looking over her shoulder, though? Do you think that'll hinder progress?
I think she's really concerned about, what's going on with the city right now. And if she's more concerned about politics, and that's a decision that she's making. I know that, as a homeowner, someone that's paying these high taxes, the highest taxes in the country, what's going on. And I know intimately, better than anybody, what's going on in the council, how it operates, what they need to make a decision. I know from the mayor's vantage point, and as the next comptroller, I look forward to following the charter revisions that I put in place to make the comptroller's office accessible and help it, generate more wealth for the city of Mount Vernon. And I think that'd be a perfect trifecta, because we need to move on, and we need to conquer COVID from killing our tax base and just totally destroying our city.
Mayor Thomas, and again, I remind people you're listening and watching Radio Westchester on radiowestchester.com. You're listening to this also after it will be posted on MyTuner Radio, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and of course the mayor. We've given him access to this recording. Mayor Rich Thomas is here with us for the best part of an hour. We have another 10 minutes to go. He is now running, former Mayor Thomas, for the position of controller in the city of Mount Vernon. I wanted to save these last 10 minutes really for you, Mayor, but I have to preface it with this. You've paid the debt you had to the state for what happened with your campaign. You are sitting there as you are, running for controller with no record, free and clear to run, a citizen who can go off and do anything you want. You have been through the ringer. You have now, you can walk away from this. You can walk away from this knowing you've been a mayor in an important city. You don't have to do this again. Why do you want to do this again? You're free and clear.
I want to do it because it's a calling, and what I know is I love Mount Vernon. I believe in Mount Vernon, and what I'm seeing right now, what I'm seeing happen is something that's basically saying I got to step up again to try and help solve these big problems. And I know that I can solve them because I put many of the solutions already in place. And the people, I know that they've been benefiting from many of the things that are put in place in the city, from the food distribution network that puts out over 1 million pounds of food. This was pre-pandemic. If I didn't, create this coalition to do that, how many families would go hungry? And I know the feeling of being hungry because I grew up in Mount Vernon in poverty. So I know what it feels like to have all the issues compound, people being out of jobs and out of work. And again, I have a vision that City Hall could do a lot more than what it's doing right now. And like my dear friend Joe Piscopo, His family's restaurant's been in Mount Vernon for over 78 years. His family's been in Mount Vernon since, the 19th century. But he couldn't get a permit from the building department, even with COVID going on. And he's expanding his business. Unfortunately, he passed away, but the permit is still in limbo. Why should a business have to experience big losses that they've experienced, but still have, be punished by City Hall because they're trying to do the right thing? So I'm looking at this from a couple of ways, saying they're not doing the job now. They have the power to solve the problem by changing banks and restricting the controller, but they won't vote on it. They're dodging that issue. And it's like, why continue this terrible game? It's terrible. And so I'm saying, you know what? I'm going to step up again. I'm going to do my best to fix it. And I hope Mount Vernon gets better as a result. And I know it's gotten better because you can see the results of what I've done before.
Now, Mayor, you've got to get elected. You've got constituents that already would probably vote for you, who supported you when you ran for mayor, even as you were going through all that. You have people who supported you in the past who you lost along the way. You have a clergy. I'm not sure where they're leaning, but they have a lot of power in your city. Do you think you can win those types of people back? And if so, how?
I believe the truth. And I think as people look at the ideas, they look at what I've done, and they see that I'm walking out on faith, not by sight here. I believe that, while there may be powerful interests in Mount Vernon, I think the people are most powerful. And I do believe that when people look very carefully at all of the lies that have been put out there, and they see each one being untrue from, they used to say, Richard Thomas was causing the chaos in City Hall. He didn't do the paperwork right, or this or that. And it's like, what are you talking about? There's so many things that were put out there that is simply not true, that people now see. And I believe, I'm asking for a second chance from Mount Vernon to come back and do the work of controller, so that we can do everything to put not just the resources behind the departments that need it, but also to put resources back in your pocket. Because
what do you think we'll get? What do you think we'll get the clerk?
I believe it's possible for
what do you think? What do you think?
What do you
think you'll have to
taxpayers.
do? What do you think you'll have to do to get the clergy back in your corner? Or do you have some and need more? Or do you think someone can win an election in your town without the clergy?
I believe that there are members of the clergy that vigorously support me and stand with me. And I believe that there are, based on what I know, a handful, maybe 4 or 5 churches that have made a decision to go a different route. And those 4 or 5 churches do carry significant weight, and I respect that. But, they're going to have to make a decision as to, what are the ideas that they're going to put forward for their person that's running for office, their person that's already in office now, but not solving the problems. Their candidate is proceeding over a Mount Vernon that has gotten worse. And that person has to explain what's going on. They can't blame the controller. They have to look at themselves. And they know that I know, and I already put it out there. They can solve the problem with the controller, but they prolonged it. Did they prolong it for this political purpose? So you mean to tell me, can you trust this group that, wants to put forward a person that won't solve the problem right now? Who stands to gain politically from that? Mm-hmm. Personally, I have nothing to gain here other than more grief, because I'm going to solve the problem, and I'm going to.
Well, Mayor, that's the part of this that I can't help but appreciate, which is, after all you've been through, that you want to go back to the Lions Den. No one who isn't in the arena. If you're not in the arena, you don't make enemies. You'll have to pass through some hard streets that you've been on before. Kudos to you for that. Now, as you know, you've been through this drill with me many times as you run for office. I've saved these last 4 minutes for you. I will say nothing. Here are the questions. I'm in the booth, little Bobby Marrone. Why do I want to make Richard Thomas, as we look forward, why would you be a good controller for the city? Why should I vote for you? And what do you want people to remember from this discussion today?
I want people to remember from our talk today that I don't pretend to be perfect and I don't pretend to have all the answers. What I do is I listen to people, I learn from them, and I'm not afraid to lead for them. And I can demonstrate that there's proof behind everything that I've said, and there's proof behind everything that I've done that has created massive benefits for the people of our city. And all I'm asking for is another chance to make sure that we correct mistakes from yesterday so we create a better tomorrow. And when we look ahead and we see the coronavirus and possibly another pandemic, be it a financial upheaval, be it another type of virus that comes out, we need to make sure that our government is ready to respond and our government is not afraid to make the changes that it needs to make so that we can protect the people. And right now, I'm asking people to just remember, look at what's going on right now. Crime is out of control. The delivery services from Domino's Pizza to different establishments, the delivery guys are getting robbed every week. That didn't happen under me. So my question is, do you want a controller that understands how City Hall operates intimately from the council seat, from the mayor's seat to the controller's vantage point? Or do you want, more promises that will be broken? I'm Richard Thomas. I'm running for controller because I love Mount Vernon. I believe in Mount Vernon. And I am someone that is paying these high taxes just like you. And I believe that with the right strategy, the right approach, the right financial game plan, we will be able to refund taxpayers thousands of dollars because we got our numbers right. One of those numbers that I am questioning is the sewer tax. Mount Vernon pays a sewer tax, but yet there's no money to fix the sewers. Where's the money going? Why aren't our sewer tax dollars going to fix our sewers? So I'm looking at this and I'm saying to everybody, I haven't seen the solutions come from City Hall. And I believe the controller's role was always designed to be, a balance of power to kind of question, well, why are we doing this? And right now, we have an administration that's in place that's struggling with the controller. I've demonstrated that I will work with anyone and everyone, and I will continue to demonstrate that, if they have a better idea, let's go for it. But what I've seen come from City Hall, zero ideas on how to generate revenue or solve the problems that we face, COVID being one of them. And so as I close, I just say, look at the structure that I put in place. You don't have to trust me, trust the structure. The law requires transparency. I'm going to add more transparency behind that. And you can look at and talk to the different restaurant owners in Mount Vernon who applied for restaurant outdoor dining permits, but never got it. Restaurants that applied for basic interior permits to do work, but never got it. Homeowners that are struggling with the rats attacking their children coming home from school. These are things that I would question and say, what are we doing with the money that you pay, be it in rent that filters through the system to come to City Hall or in taxes? What are we doing with the money that's not getting the right outcome for you? And I also want to create some new conversations around the financial tech industry. What can we do with fintech to create a whole new economy to locate in Mount Vernon so we can create new financial possibilities, including blockchain to protect creators like in music and art and industry that have content that need to be protected and monetized. So what can the city do for the new economy so that we can conquer COVID and make sure that we can afford to live here and protect our families for years to come?
Mayor, I want to thank you for your time today. Do you have any lines yet that you expect to be on the ballot, or is that still to be determined?
I'm just focused on the Democratic nomination. I'm focused on winning the Democratic primary. That's on June 22nd. But to get on the ballot, I have to get on the ballot first. So petitions go out tomorrow, March 2nd. And I hope everybody signs the petition, Richard Thomas for Comptroller. And I look forward to running a vigorous campaign, a clean campaign, one focused on the issues and not, being trapped in the past. We have to get to the future.
Well, we wish you the very best once again. Now I want to remind folks, when this is edited, if no comments by myself or the mayor will be edited, it'll only be edited for sound quality and for dead air spaces. It will be posted within the next 48 hours on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and most importantly, of course, radiowestchester.com, MyTuner Radio, bobmarrone.com, etc. Richard Thomas, thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you.
The best of luck to you, and just, it's amazing to go back in this arena again. Good luck to you, sir.
Got to do it.
Thank you.
And
Thank you for your
so
time.
much.
Take care. All the best. And we are